You know, an interesting piece of information I just came up with the other day, actually it was yesterday, is that Wernher von Braun, the German genius who basically built our space program when there was a scramble to try to get the smartest minds that were in Germany to the United States to get ahead of Hitler with the atomic bomb. Eisenhower, wasn't Eisenhower, it was Einstein. So you've got to move on this fast. And that was, Wernher von Braun was the key guy that had to get out of Germany and basically give us guidance on that. He wrote a fascinating fictional booklet or something about going to Mars. And in his book that was from the 1950s, he wrote that the man who does that will be named Elon. And he gave Elon the name, which just fascinates me.
Wow.
Elon Musk, how much can Elon actually accomplish? But he predicted in his fantasies that Elon will be the name of the guy that goes to Mars. And here we got Elon. Elon is trying to tame the tiger with the debt. And folks, I don't have to tell you this, but when you listen to our program today, you're going to realize that they've taken things, the Department of Defense, taken Social Security, taken so many things off of the menu in terms of what can be dealt with, that we're not dealing with enough to be able to tame the tiger. So there is a report that I want you to get a hold of. Go to lancewallnau.com/gold and get precious metals, gold, and how that relates to the era of Trump. He's bringing economic tariffs back. There's going to be trade wars. But I want you to get the ultimate guide to gold for the Trump era. Go to lancewallnau.com/gold and find out what you can do to create a stored value so that no matter what happens with the fire of economics and where the dollar is at, you've got a store of value. You've got a boat that will float. And this comes all the way back from the Bible. The silver is mine, the gold is mine. And that prophecy comes out in the era of Cyrus when God was shaking everything, but giving a hint saying some things are not going to shake. So I want you to read that report, lancewallnau.com/gold. You will be so glad you did, and you'll find out why we are big on diversification of what you've got for your own future. Now let's get into today's show. And so the president is back. And he's not backing down on the Panama Canal or on Greenland. He's not going to cut any slack for Canada. He's sending a message when Colombia said, we won't receive any of your planes. He said, fine, 25% tariff right now, 50% by the end of the week, all visas going to and coming from Colombia frozen. Are going to ramp up the inspections and everything you want to put in this country. And that's just the beginning. And right away, the president of Colombia goes, well, maybe there's a misunderstanding here. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how this works out with the Mexican cartel, which was firing shots at U.S. border agents. You know as well as I do that the president now designating the cartels as a terror operation allows the military to deal with them. And, you know, the problem with Mexico is they're compromised by the corruption with the cartels. They don't deal with it. So Trump's going to, I will predict that the cartels are going to re-engage by backing up from the border. But the operations that the United States is going to take on fentanyl and on human trafficking, on drugs, is going to go to a whole new level, and the military will be an option on the table. That's like, you know, having the sheriff back in town, folks. He's kind of coming in to the Wild West and Dodge City, and he's saying, here's the new rules. And I want you to listen to him bring this wild proposal out. And here's the proposal. I'm going to tell it to you ahead of time. He's saying, hey, forget about the illegal criminals. What about these people that are shoving people out in front of trains in a subway station, and they've got 30 arrests on the rap sheet? These people that our system is just recycling back into the street, I think they ought to be taken out of the country and put somewhere where they're not even in the United States, because we have an industrial, son Carl pointed this out to me, we have a prison industrial complex that makes money off of incarceration. It's a for-profit venture. Trump says, well, forget that. That's costing the government tons of money. We should really be moving these people someplace else. And then he's talking to El Salvador, to Bukele, and saying, maybe you ought to be building a maximum security down there, and we should work a deal where if you've been arrested 30 times, instead of cycling back out into our streets, we're going to start, and it'll be a big battle, but I'd love to see how the left defends the right of people to be arrested 30 or 40 times for violence and destruction and not removing them, getting them off the streets. Anyway, watch this segment here of Donald Trump just riffing to the shock and awe of even his own staff as he's talking about his latest ideas.
They're very dangerous people. They're violent people. I used to say these are more violent than our criminals. In fact, the best part about them is they make our criminals look quite nice, actually, by comparison. They are very violent people. We also have many violent criminals in our country, however, that did not necessarily come here illegally, but have been arrested 30 times, 35 times, 41, 42 times in a couple of cases, 25 times, 18 times. Many for murder and other heinous charges, such as pushing people into subways. As the train's coming along at 45 miles an hour, boom, you get pushed into the subway. They had it last week. Hitting them in the head with baseball bats while they're not looking, punching old ladies in the face, knocking them unconscious and stealing their purse. They even break into apartments and rape elderly women and beat up elderly men, beat them to hell. And I don't want these violent repeat offenders in our country any more than I want illegal aliens from other countries who misbehave. And I say, and this is subject to getting it approved, but if they've been arrested many, many times, they're repeat offenders by many numbers, I want them out of our country. I also will be seeking permission to do so. We're going to get approval, hopefully, to get them the hell out of our country along with others. Let them be brought to a foreign land and maintained by others for a very small fee as opposed to be maintained in our jails for massive amounts of money, including the private prison companies that charge us a fortune. Now, let them be brought out of our country and let them live there for a while. Let's see how they like it. You'll see crime all over the country dry up. Essentially, that's what Venezuela and other countries are doing. They're getting rid of their criminals and putting them into the United States of America. And their crime is down by almost 80%. We're going to restore law and order in America, and we want to bring back the death penalty for these horrible people that kill people. They kill people. It's always a tough thing to say because I don't like it. Nobody likes it. But if you don't do it, we're just looking for trouble.
You know, the amazing thing is he's talking in a way that any American would have a conversation. And they say, why in the world would you not agree with that? That's the reality of Trump's approach. And I would say that it's going to be an interesting process watching. It's all going to come down to Congress. You know, Congress makes the laws. Mm-hmm. And if we have this 50-50 split in Congress, or if we lose the Congress within 200 days, then all of this stops because it has to be legislated. All these beautiful executive orders you're seeing, the flare of the pen, are not permanent. They're only during the administration of Trump. The work we have to do in our movement is to take the moment that we're in and turn it into a sustainable movement that goes all 4 years and then goes on another 4 years after that. Because it's going to take that long for institutional reform. Even with Doge cutting down on, every 90 days we have $1 trillion worth of debt. Trump is working furiously to bring investment in. $500 billion into an AI conglomerate. By the way, you saw him with the tech oligarchs there at the inauguration, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm watching the ripple effect of that. So he has Google CEO there. Mm-hmm. Well, Google had to make a decision, and this is very practical. What are they going to do on Google Maps as Mount McKinley is being renamed by Trump and the Gulf of America? They had to have a meeting. Guess what the CEO said? It's the Gulf of America now. So now Google Maps is saying, hey, Trump's naming it that. That's what we're doing. That's the power of influence he never had before. He's bringing things into a different kind of alignment. But I want to cover this real quick. We only got 4 minutes in this segment. The Supreme Court is about to hear a case about the nation's first publicly funded religious school. And of all the states to resist it and to fight it, it was Oklahoma. the home of strong, conservative Christians and Republicans. But there's enough organized resistance in the left so that when a charter school that was Catholic wanted to be able to tap into some funding, right away they said, oh, separation of church and state. Well, separation of church and state is true, but the left has had an ideology in the school system, whether it's woke or whether it's rainbow flags, whether it's transing your kids or whether it's DEI or critical race theory. They are a religion, and you can't make the argument in the court that that's a religion, but you can make the argument that a Catholic or a Christian taxpayer has the right to have their own school for their children if the school system is ideologically plagued and failing to educate them. That case has gone to the Supreme Court, and that case is going to determine whether or not whether or not there's going to be a freedom for charter schools to flourish in America, because Trump has made it his commitment to dismantle the federal government control over education and let the states determine what works best and improve the quality of education. Then you've got accountability at the local level for the goofiness going on rather than the federal. But to do all that, he's trying to work on bringing the economy into taming it. This is a very serious battle. This could be the Achilles heel of America. Have we gotten so far off at $36 trillion worth of debt, and every 90 days, another $1 trillion? It's going to be hard for Trump to be able to deal with that. But you've got, what are they doing with the debt clock now? You said something.
Oh, well, yeah, I was just saying on the break that the actual debt clock has updated to add a Doge section in. And so this is the real-time savings. You can see it there on the left. So we've got federal spending, and then what they are projecting is real-time savings thanks to Doge and Trump and his administration cutting back on wasteful spending, all sorts of different things there. So I think we're up to, that's 31 billion is what that looks like. So it's a little far across the room from me, but it's what it looks like. And then I just wanted to make a comment on Oklahoma. I really, it's one of the only it might be the only state, I have to go look at it, but where all the counties voted red. I know that in the last election, they all went red. And I really think Oklahoma is going to be blessed as a result. Me personally, that I think that there's a lot of great Christian people up there, and Oklahoma's got a lot of prophetic promises over it.
Well, they're taking the case to the Supreme Court. We talked to some of the attorneys that are involved with that, and they believe it has a fighting chance. And if that happens, then charter schools are back in business again. And the states can finally, this is a big deal, people, because the indoctrination of our youth.
And I think that that's one of the other things that I think is just becoming more and more abundantly clear, and the Supreme Court keeps sending things back to states. But it's these, like you were talking about, it's what Trump's passing now. We have to codify it through legislation, through litigation, at a state-by-state level, and as much as we can at a federal level. That now is the time, to your point, to take this moment and turn it into a movement. And you always talk about smiting the arrows, and we have to advance. We have to move, like you like to talk about, as one in this next season.
But with only 58 seconds in this segment, as he has got $500 billion worth of investment going into trying to master AI, China's done what?
They just launched DeepSeek, which is their version of essentially ChatGPT, and they built it for a fraction of the price. I think it was
$6 million, a couple $1 million.
Million.
And I don't understand why it takes us $500 billion to create a Stargate or whatever they're doing, AI system.
Oh, yeah.
And they're competing with whatever it is that China's doing for millions of dollars. And of course, TikTok came out of China.
Well, yeah, but we're moving to a season of warring AIs. That's what people don't understand, is that, yes, there's AI, but it's going to come down to country versus country of who has the better AI. So when we talk about why we make an investment in something like whatever you said, 500 billion into AI, that's why, because we have to have a better one.
Well, and it's going to come down to the battle of minutes, and if we can really tame this debt that is like a threat to our survival with Trump's administration. When we come back, we're going to zero in on that with an expert on what's happening economically and why we have to pay attention to this. And what's going on with Vivek. I want to find out, because he was with Elon. But we'll come right back and talk about that.
We're entering a period of time
that has increased hostility against people of faith. It's a time when Christians are going to be tested on a moral, physical, psychological, and even a financial basis. I'm here to remind you that God is the one who has blessed you thus far, and He will take care of you in the future. You have a divine responsibility, however, to see trouble and prepare yourself. For example, with record inflation eating away at the value of the U.S. dollar, the savings in your retirement account is in danger of slipping away. I recommend diversifying your 401k or IRA out of paper assets and into physical gold. And the best way to do that is with a gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. Now that includes no penalties, there's no taxes when you transfer current retirement funds into Birch Gold. To see how it works, I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/Birch and get your free info kit, and you'll be glad that you did. Welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show. I was able to get a hold of an expert. And you know, one good advisor. I'm thinking about some bad advisors I've had, but I mean, one good advisor can save you a lawsuit, save your property, save your house, save your life, certainly save your finances. You know, Philip Patrick is well known. You see him all over the place. A lot of times I watch him on Bannon. He's a precious metals specialist. And, of course, he's an educator on the subject. And, of course, we talked a lot about gold. But I want to bring him on the show right now. Thank you so much, Philip Patrick, for being there.
Thank you for having me, Lance.
Oh, my gosh. Last time I talked to you, the fires. What's the story in California? Give our people the update.
I mean, look, we've had some rains recently, so the fires are contained and under control, which is great. The financial damage is significant, though. A lot of people were uninsured. They had their insurance pulled. Damage looks like anywhere between $130 to $160 billion. Coverage simply isn't there in the California Fair Plan. So now we're beginning the process of rebuilding, and I think it's going to be a messy one. But thankfully, everything's contained, so, you know, at least there's no further damage.
Now, this may sound like a completely, lacking in empathy comment, but do you think this is going to affect the politics in California?
It already is. There are petitions now being signed to recall Mayor Karen Bass. I know there's been pressure on the governor as well. So is it going to turn Republican? I don't think so. But at a local level, we're starting to see shifts. There's a Republican DA now in Los Angeles. So we're starting to see a shift. I'm hoping we'll see a recall of Mayor Karen Bass. I've never seen anyone handle a disaster as poorly as she did. So slowly but surely, I think, is the answer there.
Wow. Well, you know, I know you're a specialist on the area with the economics and finance, and I do want to go there. But I have to throw you a curveball question right now because I always love the spontaneity of these interviews with you. So I'm reading in the news, Vivek is discovering what he's going to do. And what happened to Vivek and Elon? They were together doing the big Doge thing. Come on. What happened? Was it Elon had a little too much, Mar-a-Lago panache, and Vivek said, hey, I'm not an also-ran. I'm a billionaire celebrity. What happened there, in your own opinion?
I mean, honestly, these are some very large egos, and I think it was a matter of time until they collided, and it seems like it happened earlier than most predicted. I think there was only going to be one winner in that, and that was Elon Musk, and I think that's what's happening. So Doge is off to a rocky start. I'm hoping they can sort of get it together and start curbing spending, because of all the priorities, that has to be the number one priority. So we'll see how it shapes out.
All right. Well, all I could say is I think the mistake is you got to put a third party in there, that like Don Jr. or someone who's tasked with, hey, keep them together for the first year, because you need. The job that any one of them has isn't enough. This thing is a leviathan of a million tendrils. Someone could just go into the military, let alone the domestic side, let alone the reformation or the fixing up of entitlements. I mean, Elon can't do it by himself, plus run all that stuff. I'm sorry to see the breakup. I don't think people appreciate how unfortunate that is, and I agree with you, it was inevitable. Now, what's going on with the economy? I'm kind of curious about this. We are doing $1 trillion worth of debt every 100 days. All this crazy optimism about Trump. I'm the first guy to just say, thank God, I'm cheerleading him every day. But let's face it, it ain't going to all be fixed. And by the way, the AI revolution, I mean, I can't go there now because we only got you for a few minutes, but the AI revolution, putting $500 billion into that potentiality, how does that turn a dollar? I mean, with all this, I see everybody's got an AI machine going on now everywhere. How is that actually ultimately going to become profitable? There's no short-term play in all that, is there?
No, look, AI is going to be central. I think there is a technological revolution happening now, and we are looking to be the global leaders. Obviously, we have competition from China, and what we've seen over the last couple of days has shown us they're a little bit closer than we planned. Obviously, they launched an AI model called DeepSeek that has shown results on par with some of the best models that we've developed so far. And the biggest concern is that they're doing it at a fraction of the price. It relies essentially on much lower end technological chips, cheaper power and batteries, essentially. We got to remember the top 4 American tech companies spent just under $250 billion last year on AI data centers. DeepSeek cost the Chinese about $6 million. So, a few decades ago, innovation on this scale would have been unthinkable. But today, the competition is fierce. And I think what it's highlighting is a shift in the global economic balance and a stark reminder that American dominance, even in key industries, is no longer guaranteed. But this fight for AI technology, I think, is going to be key. And it's why this administration are really focusing on it and looking at some big funding to the tune of almost $1 trillion. So it's going to be significant, and it's one to watch.
So there's volatility in that investment world. What can you tell me about how has your work with precious metals been holding up during this period of transition and uncertainty?
Look, I think this is a very good climate for precious metals. I think there's a lot, sort of a wait and see attitude. We don't have a budget yet from President Trump. That's going to start to materialize. And I think the sort of scale of the job in front of him will start to become clearer. You highlighted the big issue, right? $1 trillion every 90 days. That has to be the number one priority for President Trump, is to curb deficit spending. I know Scott Bessent has made it a priority and said that they may be able to cut deficits in half, but that's going to be the key. And we've got to race against the clock. Global bond markets are already starting to pull away from the United States. And we're seeing that looking at bond yields, right? The Fed lowered interest rates by 100 basis points.
I got to stop you there just for a second, Philip. Bannon knows this. We talk about it. My average listener, their eyes just glazed over. Explain quickly. I mean, they get enough to know buy gold. It's a hedge against inflation. If the dollar collapses, I got gold. That my audience gets. What they don't understand is the bond market. So give me the chat GPT for a 12-year-old. How does that work?
Listen, first of all, it's a very complicated subject. So, unless you're in the world or keenly interested, not many people understand it. But look, what we have to understand in days like today, governments around the world are beholden to the bond markets. When we talk about national debt, this is owned to bond investors, both domestically and around the world. It is important that bond investors view a government as a good investment, because the second they start to view them as a bad investment, they pull their money out. And what happens is borrowing rates start to skyrocket. It's like when mortgage companies lend to individuals, right? They're going to give one rate to somebody with good credit, and they're going to expect much higher interest rates from companies or individuals, with bad credit. It's the same with countries. And we're seeing governments fail around the world. Look at what happened with the French Parliament or the French Prime Minister recently. France, just like us in the US, running huge deficits. The French president stepped in and said, look, we need to address this. We need to stop spending and we need to raise taxes. The French Parliament said no, and they ousted him. What that told bond investors is that France had no interest in addressing deficit spending. They pulled their money out of the French bond market and borrowing rates skyrocketed. The same thing is happening here in the United States, right? Every year we're running $2 trillion deficits. Why would you lend money to a government that was spending $2 trillion more than they were bringing in every year? And in order to meet that, they were just printing money, which was devaluing the value of the bonds that you were holding. So this is the biggest thing happening at the moment. This is why for President Trump, the number one priority is to address deficit spending, but it's going to be hard, and I'd say almost impossible to pull off.
Almost impossible. I just really don't think people understand this, that the best that Elon can do now that their brain power is reduced by half, without Vivek, is he can make recommendations. The recommendations have to be legitimized and accepted by the very people that get funded in private to keep them in place. In other words, there's not an incentive to have to hurry up and, like the Titanic, get the water out of the boat. They're all moving at a snail's pace because they got their lifeboats already set up and they're paid for a leak. So I am really sorry. Let's talk about gold then. Is gold still the biblical epic book of Haggai? The silver's mine, the gold is mine. Is it still an enduring store of solutions for this? So tell me.
I would say more today than almost any other point in history. And we're talking about why. Look at the nature of our problems. We have inflation that we need to iron out. We have a world that's running away from the US dollar, right? We have, we have a litany of problems, all of which drive precious metals up, and particularly when we're seeing the fragility of currencies on an international scale. So, the first time Trump was in office, gold ran 53% relative to the Dow that ran 57%, right? It performed in 2016 under Trump. What he has in front of him is a much bigger problem this time, and those problems are very conducive for growth in gold. And you mentioned curbing deficit spending. We're talking about Doge. We have to understand the scale of the problem. $1.8 trillion is the deficit. Of that, $1.2 trillion is interest payments. There's nothing we can do about that. That is just debt service. Doge have pledged publicly they're not going to look at defense spending, of course. We talked about interest groups before. They're not going to look at Social Security. If there were two places you could viably get $1 trillion, it's there, right? Outside of that, they're going to be very limited. They're talking about scrapping entire government departments, getting rid of the Department of Education. Listen, they could fire every government employee, everyone, down to food safety inspectors. There's only $300 billion. So the point that I'm trying to make, the job that President Trump has in front of him from an economic standpoint, nobody's pulled this off before in history. So, are we rooting for President Trump? Absolutely. Should we have a hedge in place? Absolutely. Central banks around the world are doing it. We should do it.
And I 100% agree. And I hate to say it, but as much as we cheer every time he drops that tariff threat, and it is his weapon. It's his economic weapon. He can bring like Colombian line, but behind the scenes, every nation in the world is looking at the United States like, hey, if you're going to use that weapon on all of us every time you have a political agenda, we will get the heck away from you. They are all motivated. Before it was a matter of shoulder shrug. Now they want to get away from the U.S. economy because it's holding them hostage politically. It's a tough call. Listen, I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/gold because I think we've got like a special report on gold in the age of Trump. I want you to download that. Gold, what does it mean in the Trump era? And Philip, I ran over a minute on Rav because I want to put this on Rav, but do you have any final thoughts on what I just said? Am I misunderstanding it, or is this, unfortunately, the tariff is a great weapon for getting the illegals out, but a terrible incentive for nations wanting to work with us?
It is absolutely spot on. And you know, this is where we're trying to toe the line, right? We need to even things up in terms of trade imbalances, but at the same time, what we don't want to do is reinforce the idea that the dollar is a yoke, and using it as a threat, I think reinforces that idea. So it's dangerous ground in my mind when it comes to de-dollarization. The train already left the station before President Trump got in office. Of all the problems, that's the one I'm least hopeful of him being able to combat, simply because he's going to be out of office in 4 years from now. China, Russia, and others are de-dollarizing with a view long beyond the next election cycle here in the US.
Folks, you guys are my friends out there. I'm strong on the precious metals for that reason. I believe theologically, I believe God's given grace to us. I think Trump being there is grace. I think what he's going to do to try to stimulate investment is noble. If we weren't hemorrhaging $1 trillion every 90 days, I would say this will be the golden age. But I'm concerned that this party, the music can stop very quickly. And when everybody has to sit down, the whole world is awash in what $300 trillion worth of margin call is going to happen. And it's going to be an ugly day. But you'll have peace of mind if you listen to us. LanceWallnau.com/gold. Investigate gold. Investigate precious metals. It's a store of value that's stable regardless of the times that you're in. It's a biblical, almost like a biblical proverb. I want to thank you again, Philip Patrick, for being with us. I look forward to having you back with us again.
Thank you, Lance.
Philip's a great guy. You know, I love that guy. By the way, I being Pentecostal, I got to check up on how he's doing. I prayed for Philip one day. I prayed for him. He's a sweet man. I said, hey, can I pray for you? He goes, oh, sure, Lance. And always look for the opportunity to minister to people, even in this business that we're in. And which is why I'm kind of like, I might go on a Twitter diet or an X diet, because it's just so nasty over there, Chelsea. There's lots of... Are you paying attention? I'm talking.
I am actually writing down what you are talking
about. Okay. I just
so
want to make sure. You know, I'm all by myself.
Attention.
It's just me and nobody's here. I have to imagine my audience.
I am paying attention in the utmost way. I am writing down what you're saying.
Very good. Okay. So, but my point is, you're not on X much, are you?
No, I'm a 30-something girly. I love Instagram and TikTok.
Hey, listen, the TikTok, man. Everybody's into TikTok. Write down in your comments if you're into TikTok, because I really got to get sophisticated on TikTok. Mercedes is a big TikTok person. It's hilarious. I mean, you know, giving me news that comes from TikTok doesn't sound like a reliable source. But, well, the problem with Twitter is it's so negative. It is so negative that, and I tend to, I'm drawn to the negative comments. You'll see I engage everybody, but boy, I don't know why. They stand in that, but I can always delete them. I can block them too. The problem is then I don't get the stimulus of the ongoing conversation. Anyway, what I want you guys to catch is LanceWallnau.com/gold. And we're going to be really taking a look at the survival of the American economy. I don't want you underestimating the fact that we have a powerful president that wants to bring in investment, that exudes confidence regarding the stability of America. But man, you guys ought to be forewarned that we're in a serious situation financially. And if you can do the gold, read the 20-page or 15-page special report on gold in the era of Trump. It'll tell you what you need to know. It's a special guide I've got for you. LanceWallnau.com/gold. And you'll see why we're big on the silver's mine, the gold is mine from the book of Haggai. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow, because one thing that'll never stop is the power of Jesus to give a perpetual victory to people that look to him for life. And we're going to be back tomorrow with life and good news. God bless.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free.
From all of us here at MyPillow,
Go to MyPillow.com and use promo code Lance to save big on all of Mike's best products. That's promo code Lance. Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.